The T-80 is a main battle tank that was designed and manufactured in the former Soviet Union and manufactured in Russia. The T-80 is based on the T-64, while incorporating features from the later T-72. The chief designer of the T-80 was Soviet engineer Nikolai Popov. When it entered service in 1976, it was the second MBT in the world to be equipped with a gas turbine engine, after the Swedish Stridsvagn 103, and the first production tank to use it as a main propulsion engine. The first tank to use a gas turbine as a main engine was the prototype British Conqueror FB200 turbine test vehicle. The T-80U was last produced in 2001 in a factory in Omsk, Russia. The Ukrainian T-80UD diesel engine variant continued to be produced in Ukraine. The T-80 and its variants are in service in Belarus, Cyprus, Egypt, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Russia, South Korea, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. Ukraine further developed the T-80UD as the T-84. The Object 219R, incorporating combination K composite armor, was accepted for Soviet service in 1978 as the T-80B. Production of the original T-80 ended that same year. The T-80B entered production at Omsk Transmash in 1979. Omsk developed a command version called the T-80BK. The T-80B was deployed with the group of Soviet forces in Germany in 1981. Initially, the T-80 was confused with the Soviet T-72 by some Western analysts. They are the products of different design bureaus. The T-80 is from the SKB-2 design bureau of the Kirov factory in Leningrad, while the T-72 is from the Uralvagonzavod factory in Nizhny Tagil. They are similar in superficial appearance, but the T-80 is based on the earlier T-64, while incorporating features from the T-72, which was a complementary design. The T-64 in turn was an earlier high-technology main battle tank, designed by the Morozov Design Bureau in Kharkiv to replace the T-54, T-55, and T-62 MBTs, used before in the Soviet Union. From a distance, the T-64, T-72 and T-80 look alike. Despite the similarities, the T-80 is 90 centimeters longer than the T-64, and the T-80 and T-72 are mechanically very different. The T-72 is mechanically simpler, easier to manufacture, and easier to service in the field. As such, the T-72 was intended to be a tank mass-produced to equip the bulk of the Soviet motor rifle units, and for sale to export partners and Eastern Bloc satellite states. Before the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, the T-80 was not used in the way in which it was intended for large-scale conventional war in Europe. Until 2022, it was deployed during the political and economic changes in Russia in the 1990s. Most T-80 MBTs are possessed by Russia, though many were inherited by Ukraine, Belarus, and Kazakhstan. In 1995, the number of T-80 tanks increased to around 5,000 but was reduced in 1998 to 3,500. The Russian army had 3,044 T-80s and variants in active service and 1,456 in reserve as of 2008. There are at least 460 T-80UD in service with 2nd Guards Tamanskaya Motor Rifle Division and 4th Guards Kantemirovsk Motor Rifle Division. A T-80BB is on display in Kubinka Tank Museum and a T-80U is on display at an open-air museum in Saratov. The T-80U have recently been seen at arms expos in Russia such as VTTV. During the 1993 Russian constitutional crisis, Boris Yeltsin ordered the use of tanks against the Supreme Soviet and the Congress of People's Deputies opposing him. On October 4, 1993, 6 T-80UD from the 13th Guards Tank Regiment, 4th Guards Kantemirovskaya Tank Division took positions on a bridge opposite the Russian Parliament building, and fired on it. T-80B and T-80BB were never used in Afghanistan in the 1980s to keep the tank's characteristics a secret, but they were first used during the First Chechen War. This first real combat experience for T-80 was unsuccessful, as the tanks were used to capture cities, a task for which they were not very well suited due to the low depression and elevation of the 2A-46M1 gun on all Russian MBTs. The biggest tank losses were suffered during the ill-fated assault in the Battle of Grozny, which began in December 1994. During 3 months of combat, Russia lost 18 of the 84 T-80 tanks used between the 133rd Tank Battalion and 3rd Tank Battalion. The forces selected to capture Grozny were not prepared for such an operation, while the city was defended by